everybody. Welcome to Tastemaker Talk, episode 12, Behind the Screens, the Heart and Hosting with Deep Roots Hosting. I'm Abby. I'm the founder of Tastemaker, and Candace is my co-host here and COO of Tastemaker Conference as well. We're always so excited to be here with you today. As you know, if you've been listening for a while or you're new, we always start off with new food news from Candace to help us stay in the know about food trends in the foodie industry. It's so much fun. So, Candace, what mind-blowing food facts do you have for us today?
Okay. So, one of the top things is we're getting into the holidays. And so everybody's starting to think about, holiday meals and things like that. So, one of the top things people are foregoing this year due to food inflation is, can you guess what it is?
Butter. Just kidding. That was a joke.
Close, not close in like the food, but the name.
Butterscotch. I don't know.
It's actually turkey. And so I was thinking like butterball, but turkey. Yeah, people are actually foregoing because meat is very expensive and a whole turkey itself is quite expensive. So the most traditional food of the Thanksgiving meal, many people are foregoing this year. So that was interesting to me. I thought, oh. And so a lot of fast food and grocery stores, I don't know if you guys have seen this, but they're popping up to make Thanksgiving easier and more affordable. Have you guys seen that? Yes. Okay. So it's everywhere. So even like Popeyes wants to make your Thanksgiving easier with occasion style turkey. So I can't fathom going to drive through Popeyes to get my Thanksgiving turkey. But if inflation prices keep going, maybe. And so
Then you
um
don't have to cook it.
that's right. Then you don't have to cook it. So I just thought it was interesting that you can get turkey anywhere this year from your fast food place at Popeyes. And then like Aldi's has a whole turkey dinner that will feed 10 people for $47. It's like,
Mhm.
dang, okay, that's not bad. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of restaurants in our area that offer that just because I think it's also just the emotional labor that is tied to. Obviously, in our community, people are like, of course I want to cook, but
Right.
it's a huge undertaking and can be stressful if you have to be hosting people. Do you see what I did there?
Hosting people. Yeah, and it's true. My mother-in-law usually does Thanksgiving dinner. My sister-in-law is doing it this year, and she's like, what are we going to do? It's a lot scarier, I think, as new generations take over the traditions of past generations as well. They're going to be doing it different, and that's okay. So,
Mhm.
if you're looking for content to create around this time of year, then
Mhm.
certainly budget friendly holiday meals, including Thanksgiving and Christmas. People are not going to be purchasing the crazy ingredient to make some decadent dish. This year is not the year. So, um, and then just a couple other quick things. 700 frozen waffle products were recalled. Did you guys see that today? I was so
No.
sad because one of them was gluten free. And so check your fridge and freezer because many, many, many frozen waffles are being recalled. So,
Why?
salmonella or
Ugh,
E. coli, E. coli. Yeah. So,
yikes.
um, but I always feel like new food news is usually kind of the random weird stuff, but also I think it's informative that we let our community know because I was grateful someone else posted it because I didn't know, and one of them happened to be a gluten-free waffle. So, have you guys heard of birria bombs? First of all, do you know what birria tacos are?
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I have
Um,
birria bombs in my cabinet right now, by the way.
do you dip?
This is for you,
I
You
do.
should go grab one.
Morgan.
Show us. You should show us.
All right, I'll be right back.
Object lesson. I
Yes,
love
go.
an object lesson.
Okay. So these products look identical to a bath bomb, hence their name. Deep red spheres contain every component, depending on the recipe used, to make birria minus the meat. So chilies, spices, tomato, garlic, herbs, bouillon. The balls can be turned into birria, making one-step procedure. I'm like,
Cool.
birria bomb.
But that's ingenious. Like, I think
Everyone
that
to
is
make.
a smart, fun way of packaging and branding. Oh, here we go.
Okay, let's see.
Oh,
Oh my
it's
goodness!
blurring it.
But
Oh,
they
there
look
you go. You
I
like
gotta
gotta
be like
see.
a beauty person and put your hand behind it.
I don't know.
There you go. Yep. Oh, look at that. It literally looks like a bath bomb. It's the
Yes,
same.
Yeah.
isn't that
Wow.
crazy? And so people are putting them in their crock pot with the meat and water,
Mhm.
and that's it. And I'm like, okay, that's probably how I would make birria because I don't know how to do it.
Right.
How perfect that you had one to show us.
Yeah, it came with two. I made one of them
Mhm.
exactly like you're saying. Shush. It was like 4 pounds of meat with one bomb and I can't remember, a quart of water, maybe something like that. And
And how did it taste?
fantastic.
That's
Oh,
amazing.
so good. Yeah. And then I dipped tortillas in
Mm,
that to make like quesadillas kind of thing. It
um,
was so good.
That's
I
amazing.
love that.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm gonna go find those
Oh,
because
do it. It's worth it for sure.
okay, birria bombs. You heard it here first. Perfect. Okay, last thing. There was a prediction by Whole Foods of all the foods that we'll be eating in 2025. And I want to see if you guys can guess any of the top ones.
Lots of honey.
Okay.
There's also
Well,
a random weird ingredient that I can't remember the name that people are starting to do more of, but that's
this is
not
from Whole
helpful.
Foods saying the
From
top
Whole
ingredients.
Foods, yes.
Okay.
So
Hmm. Um,
Collard
Tofu.
green. Oh,
okay.
tofu.
Okay.
maybe
So far, none of you have gotten them right.
quinoa.
All right.
Okay.
Tell us what they are.
All right.
Daphne says tahini.
Okay, she's getting closer. Okay, sourdough everything, which we're
Oh,
still on
sure.
trend. Okay, sourdough everything, including dried pastas. So you're going to see sourdough
Oh,
in a lot of shelf stable products.
oh, interesting.
Oh.
They're bringing it into different things. We're all thinking the sourdough from COVID. Everyone started one. No,
Right.
no, they're meaning dried sourdough put into many products that are now on the shelves. So
Hmm.
Interesting.
seaweed and more plant-based aquatic ingredients.
Sure. Yeah, I can
So
see that.
interesting to me. Ready to eat dumplings. Dumplings are all the rage. Like, okay. Crunchier textures. People are wanting that crunch. Chili crisp, pistachio crumble, all kinds of stuff. Tea flavored snacks and baked goods. This is a new one for me. Like lots of that foggy chantilly cake and
Mm-hmm.
Earl Grey tea cookies. And I feel like that was a 90s trend that's back.
Everything's back from the
Everything's
90s.
back. Lucy, Abby is going to love this one, functional water. So, as Stanley cups and tumblers have become the latest fashion trends, liquids they hold are getting closer to like more important. So, chlorophyll water, protein water, um, pear water. So, functional waters. A focus on sustainable wine and beer. And
Mhm.
then last one, which I thought was hilarious, protein in every imaginable form.
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Instead of
That
meat eaters, vegetarians and flexitarians alike are looking to whole food sources that don't require cooking or animal or plant-based proteins. So think cottage cheese, hot smoked salmon snack cubes, protein greens made with protein-rich sweet pea leaves. Um, Whole Foods predicts that carnivores will be seeking out meat blends that combine traditional proteins with organ meats for additional health benefits. I was like, wow.
That's a
So
whole thing.
whole lot of protein. But anyways,
Yeah.
so that's my new food news. Nothing, but I feel like this is a good balance because the last three have included some sort of a lot of like Doritos or Dunkin' Donuts or random
Yeah.
flavors. So I'm bringing in some of that like healthy stuff now. Okay.
It's all about the balance. Well, thank you for new food news. By way of community updates, just as a reminder, we're 3 short months away from Tastemaker Conference 2025 in Las Vegas. We are so excited. Can't wait to come together face to face. We'll be in Vegas January 19th through the 21st, co-locating with the Winter Fancy Food Show. We are almost sold out. I think as of today, we have like 6 general admission tickets left and a handful of business and VIP tickets. And then we're sold out. So if you don't have your ticket yet and you're listening and you want to come, go buy it before they're gone. And then we also have an affiliate program for sponsorships and tickets as well. If you want to make a little extra cash and you want to bring someone with you, you can sign up for those. But we want to get over to our discussion with our sponsors. So Candace, I'll let you officially introduce them and we can get into it.
Yay, we are so lucky to be joined by Peter Green and Morgan Foster. They are the incredible team behind Deep Roots Hosting. We'll hear from them about their mission and services and insights in just a moment, but we wanted to thank them for being a Tastemaker Conference sponsor and remind everyone that you'll be able to network with them at Tastemaker Conference 2025. I don't know about you, but for me, this is something we're going to bring into the discussion today. I have two blogs and I know nothing about hosting other than what my, you know, people who know better than me tell me, just do this or do this. And so I'm excited to bring the education back to creators. And I specifically think that it's important to be thinking as you're planning your Tastemaker conference agenda, you can book 15-minute one-on-ones with all of our sponsors. This is a great time to be thinking. We haven't opened it up yet, but be thinking about, you want to meet with, Morgan and Peter to talk about hosting. You want to, talk to all the other people that are going to be there that you want to meet with. So you can schedule those. So hello, Peter and Morgan. Thank you so much for being here with us today. We love what you guys do, and we're grateful that you are a sponsor. So we'll let you introduce yourselves.
Sure. So my name is Peter Green. I am actually a founder of Deep Roots Hosting, and before that, a co-founder of Agathon, which is kind of where Deep Roots Hosting came from. We were founded in 1999 and have been doing hosting in one form or fashion since then. Obviously, the landscape has changed quite a bit. But not too long ago, we decided to focus on um, professional bloggers, lifestyle bloggers, anything from food to travel to exercise to photography to anything that is sort of a lifestyle focus. We like to host those folks, and we like to host especially folks who are trying to make a business out of their blog. It's there are very specific needs that a lot of those bloggers have over hobbyists, and so we find that we can really focus on those needs and dive deep into those particular concerns. I'm a systems guy by trade, so basically I'm an internet plumber. I keep everything flowing and keep the lights on, and I live in Flagstaff, Arizona. So I guess that's a little bit about me. I'll let Morgan talk a little bit about himself as well, and we can go from there.
Oh, sure. Hey, I'm Morgan Foster. I am located in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Um, and yeah, I started with Agathon when we were Agathon a long time ago, and um, we initially at Agathon had done development work and hosting work, and it was sort of like they kind of went hand in hand. When we first started, we were like, we want to build websites for people, and we need somewhere to put them. And then slowly over the years, those two things kind of grew further and further apart until it made sense for us to sort of split off the hosting part to become its own company. And so me and Peter took that and created Deep Roots Hosting. So it's sort of it's a new company, but an old product. Like we've been doing this for a very long time. We just sort of have a new name as of this year. And yeah, and my background is actually in theater. And so I'm much more the client care person, and I rely on Peter to fix a lot of the stuff that's over my head when it comes to the system side. But I also have a computer science degree, so I have technical know-how, but not to the extent that Peter does. And my focus and the thing that brings me joy is just creating relationships with people much more so than the actual nuts and bolts of the systems itself. So we make a good team in that regard. But
That sounds like a great team. Absolutely. And that was probably the thing that really resonated with me most when I first got on a call with you guys, is how focused you were on relationship building within the community and with your clients. You Yes, it really resonated with me that you care so much about your clients and your people. You barely talked about, obviously you had marketing goals, but your focus truly was relationships, and that made me really happy. So tell us a little bit more about what inspired you to focus on building those relationships with your clients.
sure. The story that came to mind when I was thinking about this was that, so I'm a musician as well, and I was in a band for a long time in Chicago. And when we were kind of starting off and like, wanting to be successful and wanting to grow, and there were sort of like the primary way of becoming successful is like, well, try and get signed by some sort of big label, and that's how you become successful. And it's like, well, that's great, but also like that's kind of like winning the lottery, in that like only some bands get signed, not everybody gets signed, no matter how hard you work. And
Mm.
so early on in my music career with that, I had someone who gave me invaluable advice that has stuck with me ever since, which was, he said, instead of focusing so much on trying to like explode and get signed to some big label, find other people around you that are sort of doing, that are in the same space as you, and form relationships with them instead. And you may not, you can still try to win the lottery, but like you're probably not going to, and your life is going to be miserable kind of holding yourself to that standard. And so, on a day-to-day basis, if you have relationships with people, you just have a stronger net, and it's just a more fulfilling life to be able to still achieve success, but have that sort of a network instead. And it dawned on me the other day, and like I said, that has stuck with me for years. And it dawned on me the other day that we've sort of approached our hosting business in a very similar way. That it's like we could just try to get as many hosting clients as we possibly could, and we could pull out all kinds of gimmicks, and we could, barely make any sort of profit on a given client, but we try and get as many clients as we possibly can. And that's sort of like the winning the lottery model, or getting signed by a major label model. But it's just so much more fulfilling to like have a strong network of people that we actually can care about and that we can communicate with. And maybe we don't explode in success in the same way that we could if we did something like that, but it's just so much more fulfilling, and we can just, I don't know, I think we can sleep a little better at night with having just good relationships with good people. And so that comes from both on the clients and on the sort of other vendors, even like you all, or like Nerd Press and people like that we've become very close with. And it just makes for a much more fulfilling business, I think.
Absolutely. Well, it reminds me of Maya Angelou when she says, people will forget what you say, but they'll remember how you made them feel. And
Totally.
especially within this business, everything is just so, and you guys, you will be remembered for how you make people feel. That's why we were so grateful when Andrew recommended you guys, because we trust Andrew. He makes us feel great. And that feeling continued on when I had that conversation with you guys. And it actually, when you were talking about being a musician, we just finished our book club meeting today, and Daphne's book recommendation was The Creative Art, A Way of Being by Rick Rubin. Is that what it's called?
The
That's what it's
creative act.
The Creative Act. So if
Yeah.
you haven't read that yet, Morgan, you would love it. But it's so good, and specifically exactly what you're talking about relationships and
Mhm.
creativity, and allowing for that in all aspects of our life, not just the traditional creative outlets. So thank you
Mhm.
for sharing that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think too, like this just goes really well with just our values. And I think like overall what I'm seeing is a lot of businesses, especially, small businesses, it is client forward. It is about relationships. And I think, we're seeing that trend of community and relationships first. And yes, we're here to make money, where profit is important. But I think we can all see that when you have somebody that cares about you, everybody wins, right? Across the board. So we're very aligned in that way. And so, in your experience, uh, do you feel like you've been in situations where you had more of these cookie cutter, responses or interactions like that, versus personalized interactions, and how has that differed, with what different hosting services provide?
Yeah, I can speak a little bit to that. It's kind of a funny little question because I won't tell you that we don't have cookie cutter responses, right? We do have like macros that when a client writes in with a request that's a very typical sort of request. Hey, WordPress says that I absolutely have to have an object calf. What do I do with that?
Hmm.
Well, we answer that question over and over and over. And so we do have like a macro that kind of fills in the nuts and bolts.
Sure.
But the reality is, even if we get that question 50 times, it's coming from 50 different perspectives.
Hmm.
Each of our clients' perspectives, each of their experiences is very different. Some of our clients are typing a frantic email about this error that looks like is happening while they've got kids hanging on both legs. And, we have others who are halfway around the world typing the same question over really slow internet. And they're, worried that their response isn't going to get to us, and their question is going to get to us. Our response isn't going to get to them because the time, there's just all sorts of different things. And so even where we do um, provide the fact of the answer in a sort of cookie cutter response or a scripted response, that's never the end of the response, right? That's never the beginning of the response. Honestly, the beginning of the response is, I hear what you're saying. This obviously looks kind of scary, kind of ugly. It's not something to worry about. Here are the facts. And then at the end of that, we always, assess the real the reality of where that site is at in terms of some of the borderline questionable things. So object cache again is the kind of thing where WordPress is like, you absolutely have to have it. Well, you don't. Most sites don't have to have it. And so we consider who's asking, what the history is, what their tolerance is for trying new things out versus wanting to just be very, very conservative. And we tailor then the facts such that it informs our recommendation. And so we always end with that sort of a personalized recommendation. This is what the reality is, and this is how it applies to you and your sites and your situation and that sort of thing. And so it's less about, oh, we have an article, go read the article. And more about, we have an article, let me read it with you and let me help you understand how it applies to you. And that coming alongside really just gives our clients a sense that we're both knowledgeable because we've collected all of this information, but we don't let the knowledge drive the conversation as much as the relationship again, and really helping them interpret and understand what it means to their site. Another way is simply that we never give the pat answer and walk away. We are always interested in education, always interested in having the longer conversation, typing up, copious details about what something is, whether or not the client asked for it, whether or not they necessarily understand all of it, but because they'll pick out the pieces that they do understand, they'll be secure in the knowledge that they can ask questions because we are here to help them and not just provide, short factual answers. And it helps them squirrel some stuff away that maybe triggers their memory the next time something like this comes up. And is this kind of like that? And then it's much more of a back and forth partnership, and they can inadvertently take that small step toward more ownership of their own site and their own technology without having to know all of the answers.
Yeah, and I think it sounds like there's just like a safety and a trust there, knowing that if I'm freaking out and my site is down or there's something horribly wrong, I know I can reach out to Morgan or Peter and I'm going to get a real person communicating with me, like they're there with me. And I think, yeah, that probably alleviates a lot of stress because I think, we've heard horror stories of people being like, I had this hosting company or whatever was going on, and it took me a week to get through to anybody. And I feel like I'm talking to a robot. And I know that's a real concern, in this era with everything being AI generated. And we love AI for certain reasons, but sometimes it feels like it's just being passed off. So I
Oh,
think
yeah.
that provides a lot of safety and security for clients.
My,
Absolutely.
whenever my wife overhears me, uh, helping a client on the phone, she has multiple times when I've hung up, she's been like, my God, I wish you were our tech guy.
Yeah, right. Totally.
That's a huge
And-
compliment, especially from a spouse.
yeah. And I think that playing along all of this is one of the things or one of the reasons I think we've been such a good fit with kind of this community of food bloggers and the tastemaker type community, is because I think we've just always sort of had a no BS policy. I'm not gonna try and blow smoke up yet to to try and make everything feel good. Like I'm going to tell you what's happening, and I'm not going to like I'm going to tell you what's really happening. I'm not going to try and pass you off to like Peter said, to like pass you off to here's an article we wrote about it.
Or sugarcoat it and just to
Yeah.
make you feel better about the situation rather than understanding it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think that's just, I feel like that's something that this community really appreciates, is like, just tell me, like, just tell me what's happening. Don't give me a runaround. And man, if you're sitting on call with, a big, huge corporation that you're trying to get support from, all it is runaround for like you said, it's like a week before I actually talk to a real person. And then they are like, oh, well, here's an article about it. And it's the most frustrating thing in the world. And it's also comes at the time. This is the thing, as a food blogger, this is the thing you want to deal with the least of everything. Like this is a headache to you. So like, even if I send you an article that's wonderfully well written by Peter, it still is in a world you know nothing about and you don't care. And so like, you can go read that article, but it's like, it would be like my mechanic saying like, well, in the manual, go check. I'm like, I don't know how any of this works. So what
Like,
is the
I don't want to be a
manual?
plumber. That's why I'm hiring you.
Exactly.
Right.
Internet plumber.
Yes.
And so I think that we have that empathy top of mind all the time. So like, even if someone is coming to us very curt, let's say, that like we try to always keep in mind, like, look, they're coming from this place. They don't want to have this problem that they are emailing me about. So like, I have to have that empathy just top of mind all the time.
I've personally experienced that with my blog. I was on with the host I was on with years and years and years ago, and I messaged Andrew, and he's like, oh no, 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 no. Because I was like, I don't even know who this person is. When I email, they don't, it's like a automatic reply, which I understand automatic replies, but then they never actually reply personally. Because I get an automatic reply from,
Oh,
well, that's fine to say, give us 24 hours, totally fine. But then I would never hear from them. And I didn't even know where they were located, if they were in here in my country. Like I didn't even know. And he's like, no, 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 no. So I got switched over. And I now know the names of the people I work with. And it's been really, this is how it should be. They should know that they're talking to the two of you. They know they're talking to Peter and Morgan, and they can ask you a question. Hey, Peter, hey, Morgan, and know that you're the relationship build, you're really there for a lot of that stuff. And both of you can accomplish both things. I love that you also have a computer science degree. What a combo to have that plus the theater. That's incredible. That's amazing.
yeah. People thought I was nuts when I started that, but it's
That
worked out. I kind of do both these days, so it works out.
it's a good thing. My husband's computer science, but then he's also very into sports and threw javelin at college. So he's kind of the unique, like yourself, very unique in that field. So we've kind of talked about some of the challenges that food bloggers face with web hosting, which I do want to talk about a few more of those. But I want to ask you first, what do most food bloggers not know about their hosting that they should? Because I feel like this is the golden question, that what do they need to know? What should, because I feel like a lot of it with hosting is just left to uh, just trust. And that's great and all, but let's put it back into the creator's hands, and you be the ones to tell our community what they should know about their hosting, and then lead into some of the challenges that are typically involved.
Well, I think one thing um, to start is that they know this intuitively, but they can admit it to themselves, is that it's pretty complicated. And so a lot of the times we have conversations with clients about memory and the idea of memory as a resource in their hosting um, is very convoluted, because there's memory, which is RAM, which is the resource that allows many parallel processes to happen at once, so that you can serve a lot of readers at once. There's also memory like disk space, which allows you to store a bunch of images and that sort of thing. And one typically affects performance and one typically does not. And so there's some complicated dark corners of hosting that it's fair not to understand entirely. Um, but it, performance is just a complicated thing. Performance, I mean, even for computer science majors, we talk about, um, pre premature optimization. We talk about, all of these different crazy terms because it's hard even for computer science people. And so there's a lot of different levers that can be pulled in terms of performance. And WordPress tries to foist it off onto, object cache, or install this plugin, or install the other plugin, or put, this change in place. A lot of contractors try and foist it off on the hosting company. Just upgrade, just upgrade, just upgrade, just upgrade. You just have to upgrade. And 99 times out of 100, there's this middle way of like, okay, you can't reasonably run 75 or 100 plugins and a huge heavy theme and try and run your WooCommerce site right on top of your main site and try and just shoehorn everything in with a plugin to solve each and every problem, and then expect to be paying, $80 a month and everything's humming along like normal. So there's the performance question is really like a dark art of sorts, where there's certainly some science involved, but there's a lot of inductive leaps. There's a lot of, touchy feely, like, let's try this thing and let's experiment a little bit. And I think that it's the one area where bloggers can make a great impact to their site by learning a little bit, and then also just kind of being patient and understanding that this is a very complicated system. And when you do performance, when you're tuning performance, if you do it the right way, you're doing it very methodically and slowly, changing one thing at a time and seeing what happens. And I know that that can be frustrating because you just want it fixed. You just want, and that's why people end up paying other agencies like wild, crazy amounts of money, because they just get to this mindset of, to fix something, I just have to upgrade. And if you are willing to be methodical, if you're willing to be patient, if you're willing to do one thing at a time and see, what happens, you can avoid all of that sort of endless upgrade cycle, and you can understand a little bit better of how the complexity actually, how it works on your site a little bit.
Well, I love that you guys have always been willing to teach creators and bloggers as they're working with you. If they want to know, you're there to teach them along the way. But you're also like, if you don't want to know, that's okay too.
100%. Yeah, I like, like Abby said, I don't want to be a plumber. And a lot of, creators have their hands full with content, have their hands full with community building, have their hands full with speaking at conferences or attending conferences or learning, the land. You do your food updates once every other week on this podcast, but like, things change even faster than that, and so they have their hands full with a lot of that, and so we don't expect them to be, professional hosting agencies as well. So.
Mhm. And I think a lot of times too, people, they do want to know though, that they're like, well, what is web hosting? Because I do think knowledge is power. And I think you gave a great definition of that. And I speak in metaphor, so the internet plumber is great. So you should come up with just a whole metaphor for what web hosting is, Peter. That's your homework assignment. So we can understand food metaphors.
On
Um,
it.
this is an off-topic question, but where did you get the name Deep Roots? Like, where did that come from and why?
Um, it was it was on a list of sort of free word association. But the idea of um, us, so the idea of the tree in our logo, for example, is that you see the tree, right? You see the beauty, you see the creativity, you see the flowers, the fruit, you see all of that beautiful side of things, and that those are our creators. But that tree doesn't flourish without roots that can really go deep especially in arid soil, especially in rocky soil, that can really go and find the right water source to actually nourish that tree. And so the idea of us being the deep roots that allows our creators to flourish and produce beautiful things kind of resonated.
Mhm.
See, there's the metaphor. That's what I was reaching for. You delivered, which I think that makes sense for people that are like, I don't care about my web hosting. I just want to make sure my website works. And then it's a good hosting company. And I think
The,
that
the tree never thinks about the roots. The roots just exist and they do what they're built to do, and it nourishes the tree.
yeah, I love that. I think that's great. So I feel like this goes along with that. Can you give examples of how a strong relationship between a host and a blogger has led to better outcomes for the blogger and your experience? So how you made them flourish in creating their beautiful fruits.
Yeah, so um, I know Morgan has an idea of one. I wanted to touch on one particular client that we had recently who she had an agency that was helping her on the tech side, not WordPress. Um, and they were struggling to figure out why her site was running so slowly. And they were firmly on the upgrade treadmill, and this client was already at one of our highest packages and just was not getting the performance out of her site. Um, we went back and forth with her a little bit. We also went back and forth with her tech team directly. So she's like, I don't want to be involved in this at some level. So we worked with her tech team. Um, she trusted us enough to work directly with her tech team and report back to her and tell her, you know, the good and the bad and the ugly and that sort of thing. So the relationship definitely eased that line of communication and helped us get to a point where we were solving the problem more quickly. Well, we, through a very deep dive, using some pretty esoteric tools, we discovered that there was a sort of mild conflict between WooCommerce and a plugin that she was using to offload media to the cloud, images and whatnot, and her workflow, which often embedded dozens of images in one post. And it was causing the system to just churn as it tried to go find the images in the cloud and do a bunch of work on them. We designed a solution that would cut out all of that offloading the images. We pulled all of her images back onto her server. We actually were able to save her hundreds of dollars a month in cloud costs from her CDN, and it was all because rather than her just jumping ship to the next provider, because certainly something was wrong with her hosting, as her tech team had been telling her, she trusted us enough to actually bring the problem to us and say, hey, this is unacceptable. And we totally agreed that it was unacceptable, but we were not convinced that it was, strictly speaking, a hosting problem. There's obviously a lot in the ecosystem that was at play there. And because she trusted us, she got to keep everything where it was. She's actually moved over more sites because she's like, oh, I can actually consolidate everything a little bit more. She didn't have to go through the process of changing everything to a new provider and learning their systems and yada, yada. And she saved a bunch of money, it, all based out of the relationship and all based out of the trust that we've worked very, very hard over the, I would say, a couple of years that she's been a client to foster with her. So that's a very definite example of how the relationships have really informed some of that stuff.
That's wonderful. And so nice to again, like just that peace of mind. I think really that's what, in my experience, food bloggers and creators are looking for on their tech teams, that they contract out, is like that peace of mind. Like I can just say, hey, deal with this for me. I don't know what's going on. And I trust that you will find the solution. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, I was thinking a lot about your guys' tree in your logo and that symbiotic relationship between your client and yourself, and how that, in order for it to work, the trust has to be there, you know? And so with that being said, Morgan, I want to ask you, as you know, in an industry with flashy features and jargon, what should creators look for in a high quality website hosting service? Obviously, you guys have your own, but I know that you guys are, you know, very abundance mentality people. And of course you would like everyone to come, you know, and
For
join
sure.
Deep Roots Hosting, but you want what's best for everybody. And I know that. I've learned that about you guys as I've gotten to know you. So generally, what should creators look for when looking for a high quality website hosting service?
Sure. So the the thing, I think it's, you need to look for a relationship, for like what are they really going to, what sort of a relationship can you actually form with your hosting company in your interactions with them. And it might be brief. It doesn't necessarily have to be something where you have like what, like Peter's example, where you have this really in-depth conversation that we would never have had if you know, our client wasn't comfortable enough to bring it forward to us. um it doesn't necessarily have to be like that deep, but if you are sort of in contact with your host, and right from the jump, it doesn't necessarily feel like a like someone that like personally shows care for you. I think you'll get a sense of that right away, and you will know that like when things go bad, that's when that part is going to be the worst.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so you could go to a super cheap host, and some people could get away with it, but this like as long as you know what you're doing and nothing's ever going to go wrong with your site, because the second it does, that's when it's going to be an utterly miserable experience, like we were talking about with, you know, waiting for customer service for a week or something like that. So if you are able to establish a relationship with a host that that shows that they have any sort of personal um investment in you, I think that it is a little bit touchy feely, but I think that is kind of a thing you're looking for, because like Peter was saying, performance stuff is a little bit of a dark art, in that it's pretty organic and it's gonna work a little bit differently for everybody. And a lot of the times you'll go to one host, and it's really difficult to go to one host and say, well, they provide this much RAM and this much CPU, and go to this other one, well, they only provide this much RAM and this much CPU, because you're not comparing the same thing. It unfortunately, it makes it unfortunately a little more like a little more of a dark
Elusive
art.
almost.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
makes it a little more
Elusive.
elusive. And so I'm not gonna BS y'all, like I said, and say like, well, you got to come to us because we offer more RAM at this price or whatever. Like it's just that's not a real thing, because you can be at one place that, and so many clients of ours have moved from one place where they're like, well, this host was giving us 16 gigabytes of RAM, and I'm just kind of like, I your site was not fast enough for 16 gigabytes of RAM. I don't know what they're doing, but it's not 16 gigabytes of RAM. And so like they come over to us for a much smaller plan according to the resources, and their site is like blazingly fast with us. And so it's just that's why comparing those is really like apples and oranges. So that's why I don't recommend going to a host and being like, well, how much resources do they offer us? Because that's just not gonna really get you what you want. Um, and instead, I think you need to look at the relationships with it.
Yeah.
I, and I think a good way to try to suss out some of those relationships is by being uh, asking in your own community, your existing community, rather pointed questions. Not like, "Hey, is are these guys okay or are they not okay?" But rather like, "Tell me about when something went wrong with your site and how they handled it."
Yeah.
Right? Tell us about an outage that happened at 2 in the morning, and what did they do, or whatever, you know, and allow the negative responses, the negative circumstances, to inform, like, because those are going to happen to your site as well. There will come a time when something goes wrong, and how the hosting company deals with it, both technically and personally, is super important.
It is, absolutely.
Yeah.
I know, but there have been times when my site went down and NerdPress messaged me saying it was down, and then 50 seconds later message and said it's back up. I'm like, awesome. So So I woke up the
Cool.
next morning and saw that, and didn't even know that it was down, but I appreciated the communication, and that comes from a relationship.
Yep. And while just since you bring up NerdPress to promote someone that's not us, we do mention like that we have worked with a lot of agencies who their cookie cutter answer tends to be like, well, the site seems to be slow, you need to upgrade your hosting, or it's a problem with your hosting, without really looking into what the actual issue is. NerdPress is not one of those, so they are really great, so
Yes, they are.
highly
And we
recommend.
appreciate them. Yes.
All right. Well, we are out of time, unfortunately, because I feel like there's definitely more detailed questions we could ask. But the good news is that uh, Morgan and Peter will be at Tastemaker in Vegas. So once again, if
Sure
you
will.
don't have your ticket, definitely want you to come. Daphne's going to drop it in the chat for anybody here who is live, and then we'll have it in the show notes as well. But I do want to say, I think the takeaway is relationships, relationships, relationships. And we have Bob here who gave a testimonial. He said, I am one of their clients over 15 years. They are the real thing. Bravo, Peter and Morgan. So I think that's right. That's a testament to everything that you were saying. So we just want to thank you for joining us today. Can you share your information on where we can learn more or get in touch with further questions?
Sure. You can go to deeprootshosting.com. There's not much there now. As they say, the cobbler's children are always without shoes.
Yep, exactly.
But there is a contact form there. You can always email us at hello@deeprootshosting.com. And one of the things we like to say is whether or not it's related to anything we've talked about today or any other questions, conversations are always free. And we welcome any of that and are more than happy to have conversations about anything you might be facing or just shooting the breeze about the upcoming World Series. I don't know, English football.
Yes.
Yeah, any of that stuff.
All right. I don't want to talk about the World Series.
You can talk about theater, with Morgan.
Yeah, sure. There we go. We can do that.
All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. Don't forget to RSVP to episode 13 of Tastemaker Talk or tune in. Shandace and I will be discussing building your brand story as a food creator. So have a wonderful day, everybody, and happy hosting.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks so much for having
Thanks,
us.
everyone.